this give me even more answers that they need to let Shedeur go, bro. Ain't no way. Everybody forgot about Jim Schwartz. Y'all done lost your defensive coordinator and your best defensive player, and hoping on a hope and a prayer that this defense could be turned around.
All those different things. And that was the decision they made. They wanted to go with an offensive guy. They chose Todd. I'm fine with that. They can make, decisions that they want to make, but they can't expect me to stay on board for that.
Something big just dropped, and it is already shaking up how fans are looking at the Cleveland Browns from the inside out. Jim Schwartz, the former Browns defensive coordinator, has finally broken his silence in a way that nobody really expected this soon. And what he is describing about his time inside that building is not just a casual reflection on a coaching job, it is a full reset of the narrative people thought they understood about how things operated in Cleveland. When a coach with his reputation decides to speak this openly, it instantly pulls attention back to every decision that was made while he was there and every decision that followed after he left. And now the football world is left trying to connect dots that suddenly feel a lot more connected than they did before. Schwartz's comments focus heavily on his experience leading one of the most statistically dominant defensive stretches the Browns have had in years. During his time there, Cleveland's defense was not just good, it was elite in multiple advanced categories, including pressure rate, pass defense efficiency, and limiting explosive plays over extended stretches. This is the same unit that helped maximize Myles Garrett's impact and allowed him to operate at a level that pushed him into record-breaking conversations. And yet, despite that level of production on the field, Schwartz's departure is what has now reopened questions about how stable or aligned things really were behind the scenes in Cleveland's football operation.
Anybody that's in any business, you get passed over for promotion when you've done a really, really good job in your job, and you think you were in line for that promotion. It's time to go. And Todd deserved his own guy. A forced marriage isn't going to work in the NFL.
The tension really starts to build when you look at how quickly the conversation shifts from on-field success to organizational direction. Schwartz essentially framed his exit as part of a larger philosophical split, where alignment between coaching staff and leadership did not fully hold after key changes were made. That is where the interpretation gets louder outside the building. Some observers see it as a normal NFL coaching transition, but others believe it reflects something deeper about how Cleveland evaluates coaching success versus long-term vision. And once that conversation starts, it naturally pulls in every major roster decision that followed. This is where it gets dangerous for the Browns' public perception, because the moment a respected coordinator leaves and starts speaking candidly, every related storyline suddenly gets re-examined through a different lens. Myles Garrett's future becomes part of the conversation. So does the defensive identity that Cleveland built its reputation on. Even trade speculation involving key defenders like Denzel Ward gets pulled into the same narrative ecosystem, whether fair or not. Nothing exists in isolation anymore once a figure like Schwartz adds his voice to the story, and that is exactly what is happening here in real time.
That all went into decision. I wasn't upset about it. I was disappointed about it. I wasn't upset about it. I wasn't mad about it, but it's just, my experience told me that wasn't going to be a situation that was going to work.
Now, let's be clear about what is actually known versus what is being interpreted. Schwartz did not explicitly accuse the organization of anything dramatic, but he did confirm that his exit came after a major internal shift in direction following the head coaching change. That alone is enough for fans and analysts to start reading between the lines. And when you combine that with Cleveland's ongoing roster management decisions, including discussions around draft capital and long-term restructuring strategies, it creates a broader picture that feels less stable than it once appeared on the surface. Here's the part nobody is talking about. The real weight of Schwartz's comments is not just about what he said, but about the timing of it, because it lands in a moment where the Browns are already being discussed as a franchise in transition. Whether that transition is intentional rebuilding or strategic retooling depends on who you ask, but the perception matters just as much as the reality in today's NFL media environment. And perception right now is starting to lean toward a team that is prioritizing future flexibility over present contention.
He said he's super impressed with Shedeur. There were a lot of quotes that Munkin had about what he's seen from Sanders so far. I highlighted a few for you guys. Number one, he said all Shedeur has done since he got there is work hard.
And that leads directly into the most sensitive part of the conversation, which is how all of this connects to Shedeur Sanders. While Schwartz did not mention him directly, the broader discussion around Cleveland's quarterback situation has been pulled into the same orbit. There is growing speculation in some circles about how the organization is structuring its long-term quarterback outlook, especially when you consider shifting roster priorities, draft positioning conversations, and the general uncertainty that tends to come with coaching turnover. Whether or not Sanders is actually central to those plans, the narrative is already forming around him simply because of timing and circumstance. At the same time, Myles Garrett's situation continues to act like a stabilizer and a pressure point all at once. He remains the face of the defense, but even his long-term outlook has been loosely tied into these broader discussions about direction and commitment. When a franchise cornerstone starts getting mentioned alongside trade speculation or frustration narratives, it usually signals that the organization is in a period where internal alignment is being tested. That does not automatically mean a breakup is coming, but it does mean every decision gets scrutinized at a higher level than usual. And that scrutiny is exactly what makes Schwartz's interview so impactful, because when you stack his departure alongside ongoing roster rumors and strategic shifts, it creates a layered story that fans cannot ignore. Even if each individual move has a logical explanation, the combined effect is what shapes perception. And perception right now is that Cleveland is not standing still. They are either carefully retooling for a new competitive cycle or quietly resetting their long-term structure in a way that will take time to fully reveal itself.
Duncan said, quote, he has a ton of respect for Shedeur Sanders and all the work ethic that he is showing. Also, brought up the point that Shedeur bought him a horse head for his birthday, which he keeps in his office, and he kind of joked that Shedeur was cheesing him up early in the process. So seems like there's a great relationship between the two.
The problem with that kind of transition is that it always creates uncertainty for younger or developing players in the system. That is where the Shedeur Sanders conversation becomes more emotionally charged, even if it is not directly connected to Schwartz's comments. Young quarterbacks in particular become symbols of direction, whether a franchise is building around them or simply evaluating options. And when a team's defensive identity and coaching stability are both under discussion at the same time, it naturally raises questions about what kind of environment exists for a young signal caller to develop without pressure or ambiguity. Another layer to this is how quickly narratives can escalate in the NFL media cycle. A single interview from a respected coach can shift how people interpret months of decisions. One departure becomes a storyline, one storyline becomes a pattern, and then suddenly fans are talking about organizational identity in ways that may not fully reflect internal reality, but still carry weight because of repetition and timing. That is the space Cleveland finds itself in right now, where every piece of information is being connected, whether it was intended to be or not. And this is where the bigger legacy angle comes into focus. Teams are not just judged by wins and losses anymore, but by how stable and intentional their long-term vision appears. Schwartz's tenure in Cleveland will be remembered not just for defensive performance, but for how his exit contributed to ongoing conversations about direction and leadership continuity. If Cleveland stabilizes and becomes a consistent contender, this period will be seen as a necessary phase of restructuring. But if instability continues, these moments will be remembered as early warning signs that were visible in real time. At the end of the day, what makes this story so compelling is not just what was said, but what it implies. A respected defensive coordinator leaves, speaks publicly, and confirms enough detail to keep speculation alive. A star defender remains at the center of rumors and performance expectations. A young quarterback narrative sits in the background, growing louder by association, and an organization continues to make decisions that can be interpreted in multiple ways depending on perspective. That combination is exactly why this conversation is not going away anytime soon. So now the debate becomes unavoidable. Is Cleveland simply navigating a normal NFL transition period with expected roster turnover and coaching changes, or are these signs of a deeper identity shift that will define the next era of the franchise? Because depending on how you answer that question, everything from Schwartz's interview to the Shedeur Sanders conversation to the future of the defense suddenly looks very different. And that is exactly why fans are going to be talking about this one for a long time.